Lesson 12-4, solving two-step equations. And in this lesson, you learn to solve two-step equations using models. When are you ever going to use this? Knowing how to solve two-step equations can help you determine total costs when extra charges are added. So Lupita went bowling at Great Lanes Sports Center. Shoe rental was $1. Games were $2 each. And if she spent $9 on shoe rentals and games, how many games did she bowl? So this is a typical word problem involving two-step equations, and let's solve it. So referring to the beginning of the lesson, how many games did Lupita bowl? Again, this is a word problem, so we need to define a variable. So in this case, what it's asking is the number of games that Lupita bowled. So we want to represent G as the equal number of G equal the number of games bowled. So that's our let statement, because that's what the problem is asking for. We need to translate the problem into an equation using the variable G. Okay, then model the equation and then solve it. Okay, so we know for a fact that $1 for shoe rental, okay, was spent on bowling. So the shoe that she rented was for $1. That's a constant. Okay, she already paid $1 for that, so it will not change. So plus, okay, we want to find out the number of games she bowled, but we don't know the value of G. So we know for a fact that a game costs $2 each. So if we multiply 2 by G, we get the cost of $2 per game. Okay, is equal to the amount you spent, which is $9. Okay, so we now have the equation 1 plus 2G is equal to 9. This is what we call a two-step equation because obviously it involves two different operations, addition and multiplication, or basically two steps to solve this equation. So to solve this equation, you need to work backward using the reverse of the order of operations. So let's take a look at the reverse of the order of operations. And the order of operations, the normal order, without please excuse, would be my dear and Sally. Multiplication and division before addition or subtraction. So this is the normal order of operations. Okay? So in order to solve this type of equation, we need to go the other way around. So instead of my dear Aunt Sally, okay, we need to undo H by doing the opposite. So we do subtraction and addition before we undo division and multiplication. So in two-step equations, okay, the process is to undo subtraction and addition first, and then we need to undo division and multiplication next. Okay, so let's do that here. First, we have one shoe rental and 2G. That means you have 2 cups and one positive counter. 2 cups and one positive counter, and then 9 positive counters on the right. Okay, so first things first, okay, we need to undo the addition. That means we need to undo 1, okay, before we undo multiplication. So this is your addition and this is your multiplication. So we undo 1 by subtracting 1. To get the cups by themselves, we remove one positive counter from each side. So again, just like any other equation, our objective is to isolate 1 cup and see how much 1 cup can hold. So to be able to isolate 1 cup, we need to remove one positive counter. So we subtract 1 from each side of the equation. That is basically step number 1. Subtracting 1 from each side of the equation. Okay, which means this is now 1G plus 2G minus 1. And since we subtracted 1 here, we need to subtract on the other side as well. So 9 minus 1 as well. Okay, and then from there, we end up with 2 cups and 8 positive counters. Okay, So this becomes now 2g is equal to 8 after subtracting 1. And from what we learned in the last lesson, to be able to isolate one cup, we need to divide, okay? We need to divide both sides by 2. Since there are 2 cups, undo the multiplication by dividing each side by 2, okay? And form 2 equal groups on each side of the mat. So now we have 2 cups that have been divided by 2. And since we divided the left side by 2, we need to divide the right side by 2 as well. So we divided the 8 remaining positive counters into 2 groups of 4. And we know that 1 cup represents 4. So we have G, okay? 2G divided by 2 and 8 divided by 2 will simply get us G is equal to 4. Okay? So the solution is 4. Lupita bowled 4 games. So check by replacing the value, see if it makes sense or not. So go back to our original equation and represent G with 2, sorry, with 4. So this becomes 1 plus 2 times 4. Is it equal to 9? And yes, indeed, it is. And we've checked our answer, and that is our solution. Okay, she bowled a total of 9 games. Okay, let's take a look at this example. Use cups and counters to solve 2x plus 6 is equal to negative 4. Again, we need to place 2 cups and 6 positive counters on the left side of the mat to represent 2x plus 6. So we get that 6 positive counters and 2 cups. That's what you have. Place 4 negative counters on the right side of the mat to represent negative 4. There you go. And then this represents 2x plus 6 is equal to negative 4. Again, to get the cups by themselves, you want to isolate the cup by itself. You need to remove 6 positive counters from each side. The problem is there are no 6 positive counters removed from the right sides. So, since there are no positive counters on the right side of the mat, we need to add 6 negative counters to each side to make 6 0 pairs. Okay, so we add 6 negative counters and then we take out the 0 pairs. So we added 6 negative counters on the left side and take out the 0 pairs that isolated our cups. And since we added 6 negative counters here, we need to add 6 negative counters here as well. So we have a total now of negative 10 counters. Okay, so we took out our 0 pairs. We end up with 2x plus 6 plus negative 6. That's when we added our negative 6 equals negative 4 plus negative 6. Okay, so from there, the equation A becomes 2x equals negative 10. Okay, so we have now 2x equals negative 10. We have 2 cups and 10 negative counters. And we want to undo multiplication by dividing each side by 2. So you have your 2 cups. And we undo the 2 by dividing both sides by 2. So we show division by dividing both sides by 2, circling the 2 cups into 2 groups. And in the same fashion, when we divide the left side by 2, we need to divide the right side by 2 as well. So we get our negative 10 counters, and we divide it by 2, and we have 2 groups of 5. So this now becomes 2x all over 2 is equal to negative 10 all over 2. So that is a fraction bar indicates division. Okay, and if you notice, 1 cup represents negative 5, so x equals negative 5. We check our answer by simply substituting the value of negative 5 to the original equation. So if we substitute negative 5 to 2x plus 6, we have now 2 times negative 5 plus 6 is equal to negative 4. We find out that negative 10 plus 6 is indeed negative 4. So the solution is negative 5. Okay? So let's take a look at some examples which we will solve without using counters. Okay? Let's say you have 3x plus 2 is equal to 14. Again, we want to solve for x. That means we need to isolate x, and we need to work backwards. That means opposite of the order of operations. So we undo okay, by subtracting and adding first before dividing and multiplying. Okay, so remember Saddam, okay, we undo. This is how our two-step equation goes. So we have 3x plus 2 is equal to 14. The first operation we need to undo is plus 2. So we undo 2 by, since we're adding 2, the inverse operation of addition would be subtraction. So in order to undo 2, positive 2, we need to subtract 2 to both sides of the equation. So we subtract 2 to both sides of the equation. We end up with 3x is equal to 12. Because positive 2 minus 2 will give us 0. 14 minus 2 will give us 12. Now we're left with multiplication, and in order to undo multiplication, we need to divide. So divide both sides by 3. End up with x equals, okay, 4. Because the 3 over 3 is 1, which is 1x, or the same thing as x. And 12 over 3 is 4. Okay? And the value of x is 4. And to find out if our answer makes sense or not, we simply substitute 4 back to our original equation. So we substitute that x to that x and see if the sentence will be true or not. So we have 3 times 4 plus 2, is it equal to 14? And this is 12 plus 2, is it equal to 14? Yes, it is. 14 is equal to 14. And that checks out. The solution is x is equal to 4. Okay? Let me give you another example. Let us do, let's say 1/2 y minus 4 is equal to 6. Okay? Again, 1/2 y, okay, if you remember, 1/2 y is the same as y over 2. Okay? Let me give you an example. What's 1/2 of 10? 1/2 of 10 is equal to, is the same as 10 divided by 2. 1/2 of 10 is 5. Okay? 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 1/2 y is the same as y over 2. So this now becomes, if we rewrite this, this is y over 2 minus 4 is equal to 6. Okay? So let's solve this two-step equation. Remember why this is 2 steps. Because in the previous example, this is step number 1, subtracting by 2, and step number 2, dividing by 3. 1, 2. Two-step equation. Okay? So in the same manner, we'll solve this. And we need to undo our subtraction and addition before we undo our multiplication or division. So in order to do this, we need to undo negative 4. And in order to undo negative 4, we need to add 4 to both sides. Okay, adding 4 will undo negative 4 on the left side. So we're left with y over 2 is equal to 10. And since it's the division expression, so to be able to undo division, we need to multiply both sides by 2. So we undo this by multiplying both sides by 2. We end up with y is equal to 20. So the value of y is equal to 20. And if you want to check if our answer makes sense or not, we simply substitute 20 to our original problem. So 1/2 of 20 minus 4, is it equal to 6? So 1/2 of 20 is 10 minus 4, is it equal to 6? And yes, it is. 6 is equal to 6. Sentence is true. The solution is y is equal to 20. Okay? And that is our lesson. The secret word for this particular lesson would be equality. The secret word is equality. Thank you for watching.